you got to get some nasty coffee every now and then. Like I said, it will just really make you appreciate the good stuff better.
Welcome to the Coffee Snobs Podcast, where we just really love good coffee.
Grab your cup of coffee and join us each episode as we explore any and everything coffee related.
From pour-overs to lattes to the coffee experience, we explore it all. Because, well, life's too short to drink bad coffee. Let's go.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Coffee Snobs Podcast. My name is Aaron. I am with my good friend Tyler.
Hello.
How are you doing, bud?
And I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah, so we're going to do things a little bit different moving forward. Instead of what's new with you in coffee, we're going to call it what's in your cup. I think it's going to work.
I think so too.
So, Tyler, what is in your cup?
Currently, I have been drinking some, I think you say it, Sabor from Counterculture.
Sabor.
Sabor Espanol. Yeah, I haven't actually had Counterculture for several months. I used to get it quite a bit, but I've tried other roasters recently. So good old social media and marketing, I saw Counterculture came out with a new flavor wheel, color palette, whatever you call, for like finding the notes of coffee. And this Sabor coffee looked pretty interesting. So ordered a bag, a box, and it's been pretty good.
Yeah, we got to crack that open. Was that Saturday?
Yeah, it was interesting. The Sabor that I received actually is a blend, 33% Rwandan, 33% Ethiopian natural, and then 33% of a different Ethiopian bean.
So it's definitely a big blend, which is very interesting. That's drastic region combination.
All the beans are from Africa, but different parts and a mixture of a different process, throwing that 33% natural. So I've tried the Sabor in a pour over and Americano, and it's pretty good.
I'm going to play devil's advocate. I was hoping
Always.
it would be something different than it was. I will say this: from the first initial sip to when I allowed it to cool was a drastically different taste. And I think some of the notes that were on the box, you really could not tell until the coffee temperature dropped drastically. So some of the notes on the box of it saying chocolate, like you could not smell anything chocolate related until the temperature was almost, I'm going to say mild. It was to where you could take a big gulp. Was the first time that I come across that flavor, which was very interesting.
Yeah, it's not my favorite blend I've ever had, but it's a lot better than some lower tier options. Didn't really stand out. But to echo what you said, the initial taste and smell when it was first poured, it was super hot. It was hard for me to distinguish a lot of the notes and flavors, but when it cooled off a little bit, those were more prominent. So that was maybe something unique to this coffee, or actually something I'll try to pay more attention to all the coffees I have going forward.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm trying to do is not pay attention to the labels or the notes on the box, because I think I think a lot of times they're a descriptor that we're looking for instead of where the notes are supposed to be there to guide us. They're more of a painting the lines, defining what the coffee is. And a lot of times you will read chocolate on the bag like this one has, and you're looking for chocolate. And
Sure.
so that's why I'm not saying that it was bad. It just was not what I was expecting. And it took a very long time in the coffee to almost be very chilled. It's still probably 90 degrees, but that's drastically different than what it comes out of the Chemex or the pour over or the espresso machine. And so it took a long time to get that note that they had described for me to observe that note. So That the Saber, the branding and the box looks amazing, and their new color wheel,
Yeah, it's
Flavor.
really cool.
flavor wheel is really cool. So I recently got to travel to Raleigh and went to what I would say is probably top 5 coffee shops I've ever been to. Most beautiful coffee shop.
Wow, that's a pretty high standard. You've been
Yeah.
to quite a few.
Yeah, so it was Heirloom Coffee in downtown Raleigh, and man, just a gorgeous facility. The equipment, you walk into it, it's high white, and very early in the podcast, early episode, we talked about good characteristics of a coffee shop,
Yep.
and we said that reclaimed wood, leather, but I'm going to add a new characteristic, and it's high white,
High white. High vis or
Just-
flat?
like
Lots of white.
lots of white with big windows. And you walk into this coffee shop and everything's white. It's got beautiful architecture in the ceiling, wood. And then you see on where the baristas stand this gorgeous pink espresso machine. Like,
Like hot pink or soft
no,
pink?
it's like a paisley pink, but a gorgeous color. And then to the right of it is 3 siphon setup, and then to the right of that is a pour over setup with a ceramic. It's kind of like a V60 with a hole cut in it, so it takes a cone filter, and then 2 glass setups. To the right of the espresso machine, where the cash register is, they have a big, tall glass cold brew system, 2 of them actually, and just it was very, very good. And I wish I'd have had more time, and I ordered just Americano very quickly. I wish I would have had the opportunity to get a cortada or a latte drink, because they make their own syrups.
What beans were they using?
I think it's little wave or
Out of Durham,
yeah,
North Carolina?
out of Durham. So this Americano was the most balanced Americano I've ever had, and the tough part about this is
Did it ruin you for other Americanos?
I think so. I think it just I make a lot of Americanas at work, and our Wega machine, we have craft beans from Sugar Creek, and it just raised the standard really, really high.
Well, that's actually a pretty good segue, Aaron, inadvertently, because today's main topic is on the flip side of that. Does bad, or not say bad, but does lesser coffee, or do lesser coffee experiences actually maybe make you appreciate the good that even more? Does that make the sweet even sweeter? And I'm going to start you off with an analogy, dear listeners. Stick with me here. Imagine back to the time when you were 16 years old and you got your first set of wheels. Normally a starter car is not the nicest car. Myself, I started off with, I think it was a Dodge Caravan minivan back in the 90s. And, it's not the nicest car. Aaron, what did you start driving?
I drove an 87 Honda Accord that was ragged out.
Ragged out. Okay. And I'm going to make the assumption that, today you drive a slightly nicer vehicle than an 87 Accord.
I do.
Okay. And I
Slightly
do,
nicer.
like I said, I'm not driving a luxury vehicle by any means, but I'm driving something nicer. So when I was 16, I did not care. I had an automobile that I could drive by myself, and I was just ecstatic. But now I have a car. It has a leather interior, sound system, backup camera, fairly standard stuff in this day and age. But if I had to go back to driving that 1994 Plymouth, whatever it was, Dodge Caravan minivan, I would be like, what is this crap? So let's take that car analogy. Your first car, in retrospect, was not probably that great.
Nope.
Once you've experienced something better. So think about coffee. And when your standard is something junky like 8 o'clock coffee or Folgers, and
Or
then you,
Keurig.
correct, whatever, we're pretty discerning here. And then you have your first bag of really good coffee, something like Sunnergrass or Counterculture, something that's more finely crafted. When you revisit that coffee that you might have initially thought was
good or at least acceptable, you find that, this is not nearly as good as I might have remembered.
Yeah, that is the tough part of the journey of coffee, of just the endless pursuit of the best cup of coffee, because I think we all, I'm going to pick on the Aldi bag of coffee a little bit in this episode, because in an earlier episode, we promoted that as a one of what we think is one of the most bang
for your buck.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great bag, but once you start to hone in or craft your palate, you start to realize that there's some deficiencies with that coffee. Now, does it taste like what most people think coffee should taste like? For sure. But it's just not the most desirable or enjoyable bag of coffee. Like, I will say this, Enderley, I drink Enderley Ethiopian like crazy. So that's a staple at my house. And after you've drank something that I think is crafted and cared for that well, it just starts to raise your what's the word, Tyler?
Level of expectations?
Yeah, it raises your level of expectations of what coffee should be. And then you go to some place like Heirloom that exceeds all expectations. You know that a coffee shop is going to deliver a certain level. And that's one of the reasons why I love going into coffee shops, is because I know that all of these coffee shops are going to deliver a different experience. And that's what I love about coffee. Every cup of coffee is going to be different. And so you go into Heirloom and you get a Americana. You know what Americana is going to taste like. You know what to expect. And then you get it and you're like, what in the world? This is like a total different level of Americana than I've ever gotten. And I've never tasted an Americana like this. And so then you go back to, we have really good equipment. We don't have, I would say most of us don't have entry-level equipment. We're not think about it. We've been on this coffee journey for multiple years. So think about where we started to where we're at now.
Started at the bottom. Now we're here.
We literally started at the bottom. And so you kind of look back at where we were buying just any bean we could. I mean, now you're on trade. I'm traveling to Raleigh to pick up bags of beans. We're getting where counterculture was our kind of go-to. Mm-hmm. Now it's kind of our fallback of well, I guess I got to get a bag of counterculture.
Wah, wah. First world problems.
Or it's like you get the Sabor, and you're like, well, I mean, I guess it's okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Let me ask you this. To play devil's advocate, is this a bad thing? Because if you're constantly trying to exceed your expectations, I mean, can you imagine yourself in a couple more years looking back and thinking that this Heirloom, for instance, this current is not as good? Or how do you view that?
Well, so understand that we're on the Coffee Snobs podcast for a reason. Our goal is to try to maybe do the legwork so you don't have to. Okay, so some of the things that we're going to suggest, we're talking through it, we're experiencing it.
It's all for you, dear listener.
Right. So our goal is to help you craft the best cup of coffee you can. So we're always on the podcast going to push the limits, going to never settle for what's good today is going to be good tomorrow. Like what's good today is going to be bad tomorrow because we're going to come up with something that's even better, or we may find out that no, yesterday was really good. And so for me, I am in this pursuit of crafting the best cup of coffee, be it out of a machine or out of manual brew, whatever it is. But for most of our listeners, and I would love to hear feedback on our listeners are going to get to a level and they're going to be fine with that level. Like my wife is fine with a certain level. I mean, dude, she took all of my coffee stuff to a trip. She took our kettle,
Good
pour over.
coffee when traveling, also a previous episode we've covered.
And which was exciting for me, but also disappointing because I didn't have all of my coffee stuff at the house. And
Aww.
but she made good coffee in her hotel room, and but she's, you know, her level is not where mine is, and I'm not mad at it. I'm excited that she enjoys
Yeah.
a good cup of coffee.
Props to her for taking a travel coffee setup.
But what's your thoughts on it, Tyler? Like, do you think that the pursuit of crafting the best cup of coffee, or do you think the bad experiences make the good experiences sweeter, or do you think they it's, you know, what are your thoughts?
Like I said, I think ultimately for me, bad, or let's say lesser coffee, it makes me appreciate the good times even more. For example, during the work week, my wife is actually a big fan of the Aldi's single origin bags. And, you know, if I had to pick between that and Enderley or some other higher end roasters, it's probably not my first choice. But during the week, I'm making pour overs in the morning, getting it in a cup and out the door to work. And the coffee, it's not bad. It's drinkable. However, when I have more time on a day off for the weekend to, you know, craft a nicer bean, it makes me appreciate that more. So I don't look at it from a negative aspect. I'm like, you know, this is good, but I've got in the back of my mind, man, I'm drinking this Aldi's bag during the week. It makes me almost look forward to weekend coffee even more. Or when I have a chance to go to a good coffee shop, such as Groundwork or the Hollow Cup, somewhere local.
Yeah, so I give you another example. Here recently, we got 2 bags of Counterculture. I think it's Apollo and maybe Fast Forward.
Okay.
We were out of coffee.
This is at home or work?
This is at home.
Okay.
And we have been drinking. Enderley has been on our shelf for a long time.
It's good stuff.
And it is really good stuff. But what I've done is I have consistently done a pour over recipe that like is consistent. Like I have the same amount of grinds every time, use the same amount of water. Like it is extremely consistent.
Following a recipe.
And so I, with the Enderley bag, that's kind of what I've tailored that pour over recipe to. And then I get the Apollo, and man, it was, my wife, after we got a few cups through the bag, she was like, I know this is kind of wasteful, but you want to go and buy another bag of coffee?
Oh, wow.
Because it just, we have, I think that we have
spoiled yourself.
Yes. I think we have really honed in our palate or honed in what we really enjoy. And so a cup of coffee is no longer just a caffeinated beverage. It's actually a desirable beverage. It's like something that we, you know, like some people like Coke, some people like Pepsi. And I would say that we have just started to understand the difference.
Let me ask you that, like the classic, you go to a restaurant, you ask for Coke and they say, is Pepsi okay? Sometimes if you're really wanting a soft drink, you might prefer Coke, but you'll drink Pepsi in a pinch. Does that, but you're probably sitting there like, this is okay, but man, I'm really looking forward to the next time I have some Coke.
Yeah. And I think where my snobbish, comes from is like, no, I'll just take water.
Okay. Yeah. You're that kind of person. I learned that about you by now. So,
so I was at Waffle House a few mornings ago.
Really? He didn't invite me? Man, I love some Waffle House.
I know. So I was at Waffle House. It was like 6:45 in the morning. And, you know, normally like I would always get a Waffle House coffee.
Heck yeah.
Dude,
Wait. So, hold up. What about your nasty coffee challenge? Don't forget about that. We're going to have to keep you accountable. I mean, you're the man who ordered coffee from Taco Bell.
I am the man who ordered coffee.
I think I'm going to issue the throwdown here. You got to get some nasty coffee every now and then. Like I said, it will just really make you appreciate the good stuff better and more. Whatever.
I mean, you're correct. I mean,
so you told on yourself there, buddy.
So
what did you get to drink at Waffle House without their coffee? Just water?
Now I brought my own water from outside. I had a cup of coffee in the car, and I drank it before I got to Waffle House. So I didn't need another cup. But
Golly. So, all right, where were you going with that? Sorry. You went to Waffle House and you, rather than just take their, probably not the best, but drinkable coffee, you just avoided coffee altogether.
I did. I had coffee in the car.
Okay.
So I didn't need another cup.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I went without. I just made sure that I got my good cup of coffee before I had to take their bad cup of coffee.
Well,
But hey,
different strokes for different folks. I would probably still order coffee at the Waffle House. But okay.
I know this episode can be pretty pretentious and sound very snobbish, and I like understand this is the Coffee Snobs. I mean that's what our goal is, to find the best cup of coffee, find people that craft great beans, that care. We know that everybody's not going to have the budget or the time or the willingness to devote this much time to coffee, and that's why we do what we do for y'all. And so
spreading knowledge
wherever you're at is great. You're going to realize you're going to experience a cup that is a game changer, and then you're going to realize that the Folgers is not great or the Keurig is not great, and I could spend 3 or 4 or 5 more minutes and
hours
right.
talking about. Well, to quote the great Joe Strothman, like what you like and do what you do. So, dear listener, you might not be quite as pretentious as Aaron. I'm trying to be the middle ground here. But, if you like the white bag of Aldi's coffee, rock it. Don't avoid coffee altogether like Aaron. Like what you like, do what you do.
Well, I think I
agree to disagree.
No, we're just going to say I agree with you. I agree with you.
I'll take that as a victory.
It is. I mean, I know that not everybody's going to be where I'm at, and I'm fine with that. So
that's cool.
But listen, we hope you've enjoyed this episode. Seriously, like this is something that me and Tyler talk about quite a bit because we're always
trying new things.
Trying
to spread the news for you, dear listener.
Yeah. So remember, we're on Instagram. Tyler, what's that handle?
All right, on Instagram, we are Coffee Snobs Podcast. On the Twitter, Coffee Snobs NC. And if you would like to send a good old-fashioned email, hello@coffeesnobs.net. If they want to reach out to you, Aaron, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Aaron Beaver, AARON BEAVER. You can always shoot me a direct message. I love talking about coffee, and you can always come by my workplace in Charlotte, and I will make you a cup of coffee. So just throwing that out there.
Hey, how about that?
What about you, Tyler?
I am on Instagram and Twitter, Ty Dancy, TYDANCY. I would gladly make you a cup of coffee too, but I work in Salisbury during the week, and you're probably not going to be up there. But if you are, swing by. And also, last but not least, Mr. Chad. He is busy again, as always. He is on social media, Chad Lingafelt, with that silent F. And real quick, I want to give a shout out to a new listener, Joseph Konerman. He started listening to the podcast, and I think this has inspired him to raise his coffee game. So, Joseph, thanks for listening. And to all the other listeners out there, reach out to us if you have any topics, questions, comments, anything like that. Send all your hate mail straight to Aaron. But that's going to wrap up this episode of Coffee Snobs. We will catch you guys shortly.
Adios.